All right, any more coming in? We'll crack on. Just wait for these. All right, okay. Yeah. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thanks very much. I know there's a couple of people still getting coffee. Good evening. Warm welcome to Mansfield Rugby Club for our 7th one of these age grade rugby road shows. Thanks ever so much for everyone coming out tonight to be here. I know some of you have travelled a fair different distance looking at our register from earlier, so thanks very much for that. We're going to be here a couple of hours till 9 o'clock. We're joined by a load of other people around the country, so a big welcome to them. This is the first time we've live streamed one of these events, so most of them can see the back of your heads, so don't worry about that, that'll be fine. But welcome to everyone else who is dialing in online as well. It's great to have a good turnout there as well. My name's Mark Saltmarsh. I'm the Head of Education Development at the RFU, and I've been leading this work around age grade rugby and the changes that we're looking to make to the game from September 2016. We're going to start just with a little piece of video while a few people still get their coffees, and this sort of outlines exactly why we're here this evening.
Rugby's about moving the ball, it's running, kicking or passing with the ball, and if you can learn those good fundamental skills at an early age, your chance of continuing to play rugby is very high, and that's what we want.
Generally, we've got a very complicated system in England, and we're trying to find a way to make life easier for the players coming through the system, where we're actually looking at what's best for the player at any point on their journey.
It's going to be a try indeed.
I think the new rules of play, like any change, has created some challenges for us. However, we've probably looked at it that it's, instead of being a challenge, as an opportunity. We've found that as a result of that, we're getting much better returns in regards to their basic skill sets, their ability to attack and defend space, and most importantly, how much time they're actually spending on the ball.
Again, less pressure to win will mean coaches have much more opportunity to play every single player in their squad at the right level for them.
Is he going to make it to the line? The tackle comes in.
The playing calendar and the structured calendar and the rules that will be associated with the different age groups will mean that actually you're planning the future of the player rather than trying to get the perfect player.
The framework that's been created has been designed to help clubs, schools, colleges all work together more harmoniously.
In every step it will stretch them, whereas it won't be just thrown in immediately with competitive matches in knockout tournaments. That'll come when they're more emotionally able to deal with those kind of things.
What is the most important thing? Is it that everybody plays? Is it that everybody gets a touch of the ball? Is it that everybody scores a try? Is it that we win? And the trick when you're delivering rugby in a school or in a club is to try and strike that balance.
We're trying to tool them up to ensure that they can deliver a safe, good game of rugby, whether that's when they're coaching or whether that's when they're refereeing.
It isn't a better game or a worse game, it's a different game, and that it has considerable advantages in development and engagement.
It's not about winning, losing. It really is about learning the key principles of the game, learning the discipline, learning to take winning and losing, enjoying it, learning the key skills.
Hopefully this way of doing it will keep the players in the game for life.
So a flavour there of what we're going to talk about this evening. And you're not going to just hear from us, although we're joined tonight by a few other people who are going to help facilitate and run the session. Some of whom you'll know. I expect many of you know Darren, who is the area training manager. We've got Phil Llewellyn. Phil, give us a wave at the back, who's player development officer in the area, and Tom Mapp as well, who's although National Schools Development Manager, is a local lad as well, so some of you will know Tom. Also, just a quick mention for two of our council members as well in the room tonight. So we've got Mike and Tracy, who are council members for Notts Links and Derbyshire. Thanks very much to those two for helping out and being here as well tonight. So our agenda for this evening, after we've had a bit of an overview from me, we really get into the meat of what the changes are about. And we want to provide the opportunity, as I say, for you to have a good opportunity to discuss that and look at what those changes mean for you in your school or club or college for next season. And what is it that those changes mean for you, and what can we do to help you to implement them? So really we're going to ask you to actually do a little bit of discussion, a bit of work tonight, so we can help you to help your players. And that's really the key to this evening. That's what we're after, is a session that will help us to get ready for the new season, to hit the ground running in September, and make sure your players are getting the best out of the game, which is what you strive to do every time you turn out with them week in, week out in your club, schools and colleges. So that's the outcome that we're after this evening. So just by way of an introduction to start with, sort of 10 or 15 minutes from me, of where we've been and where we've come from, how we've got to where we've got to now. A little bit of background around age grade rugby and the changes that we're talking about. And this has been a major piece of work over the last over 4 years, in fact, that includes some of the work we've done around introducing different rules of the game in the lower age groups, work that we've done around looking into the things that engage our young players in the game, the things they like, the things they don't like, the way we work with our coaches and referees and medics, etc., etc. So it's been a really wide-ranging piece of work. And what we found to start with was some things that helped us decide we really needed to look at how the age grade game and everything under 18 and below was played in schools, clubs and colleges. And you can see some of the things up there that talk about how what we found when we started that research around the clarity that our players had about what was their competitive opportunity. The fact that we had clashes and duplications, which meant that a load of players overplayed and a whole load of other players underplayed. Some of the incidents of behaviour we had on pitches and around pitches and all those sorts of things. So a number of things that really indicated to us that we needed to try and do something about making sure we safeguarded the game for our young people into the future. So that was where we came from, and we want to make sure that the game going forwards is the game that they want it to be. So that was where the review started. And a number of you will have probably attended the Rugby Blueprint Roadshows that we ran in 2013. And we asked there, does the competitive programme need to change? And there was a pretty overwhelming yes that it did from those people like yourselves who work with those young players on a week-by-week basis. You know, with 70% of people saying, yeah, we needed to do something about it and change it. And you also felt that it was the RFU's job to do it. You told us you need to go out and make sure that if it's going to change, the RFU needs to lead this. So it needs to be something that's centrally done and consistent as well. And that was where the review accelerated and the pace picked up in terms of us going back away again and looking at how could we create a game where we implement some change that supports you to support your players, as I talked about earlier. There's been a huge amount of research that we've looked into, that we've done ourselves, that we've looked at in other sports, in other countries, in rugby, non-rugby, child development, all sorts of things that we've looked at in this review to try and find out what is it that really switches young people on to playing sport and playing our game as well. So everything that we've come out with in relation to the changes for age grade rugby are based on that research of trying to find out what it is, as I say, that really switches on our young players. And these are more of the sort of key messages about what motivates young people to be involved in activity and in sport. And again, the real key basis of trying to ensure that we got to a point where we were really listening to our players and making sure the game is the game that they want it to be. And that's not just our stars by any means, it's all players of all abilities. Those that may have just started the game, those that might well be the stars of the future, but trying to look at the entire range of abilities and motivations for playing the game and making sure the game is something for all of them. And having done that, we looked at how that research and that information, that listening that we did, could then be formed into some messages and some really key principles about what the game should be. And we shared these on the Blueprint Roadshow to test them, to see if it was what people thought it should be. And again, you told us this is the sort of thing that we need the game to be. So it will be player-centred, and it must be player-centred. It then must be about the development of those players as rugby players, but as people as well, and being something that helps them to develop in their playing of the game and sport and in their lifestyles as well. And finally, what we provide in terms of the playing opportunity has to support that as well. So 3 principles: player-centred, development-driven, competition supported, in that order. And what we found was actually in the research and the work we did in the early days of the review was we did a bit of all of that, but we probably did it in all sorts of different orders, and too often actually the competition seemed to come first. We put in place a competition and then we thought about, so how can we get players to play in it? So we're turning that back around and putting it in the right order. Player comes first, and then we build the opportunity for them to play around their own development. So it's a really important part and basis for which now all of age grade rugby, whether it be in a club or a school or a college, will be based on those principles. So what that's led us to is 4 areas of key change that come in from September, and some of this has been underway for some time. Some of it has changed this year as a stepping stone towards September, and we'll talk later on about how some of it will change over a period of 2 years or maybe more. So we're talking about an evolution here, but a really key date for us is next season, September 2016, what will happen then. And at that point, we will complete the rollout of the rules of play. So many of you have been involved in that, I'm sure, in your clubs and schools of a progressive building block stage approach to developing and introducing the game. And Darren's going to talk about that a little bit more in a second, and we're going to try and hear from you what your opportunities and challenges are around that area. So from September right the way up to and including under 13 across the entire country, from Cornwall to Cumbria, everyone will play the new rules of play across clubs and schools. So single game for everybody. The second area is making sure that our competitive offer supports our player development approach and new rules of play, etc., things like that. And that's about having a menu of competitions that, again, are totally consistent across the country. So for a particular age group, we'll have a set of competitions that can be played at that age group, which help those players play the type of competitions they want to play in. Not what we think they should play in as adults, but what motivates them to be involved in the sport. And again, Tom's going to talk about that later on for us, and you'll get a chance to discuss that. The third area is the season and the calendar for the season. In the past, our youth structured season, as we have at the moment, we found was certainly based on probably a smaller number of players who had certain motivations, and it didn't necessarily help all of the players. So we're going to create a calendar and implement a calendar for next season that is about all the players. It supports all the players to be playing as regularly as possible, making sure that we're challenging ourselves not to duplicate, not to overplay players, not to conflict colleges and clubs or schools and clubs. So trying to create a much more supportive competition calendar. And we'll talk about that again later on, which includes representative rugby, and myself and Phil will talk about that, and you'll get a chance to discuss that as well. And the final bit is a really important part of the jigsaw, actually. If we're going to introduce all these things, we have to have a set of rules and regulations that support that. And one of the things, again, we found in the review is our regulations have become very much about actually creating barriers to people playing rather than supporting people to play. So we've been through, and recently the RFU Council, and the guys here have been part of that, have voted and approved some changes to Regulation 15, which is the age grade rugby regulations, which make it much more supportive of all players being able to play. So some subtle changes there, again, about trying to make sure we make the season work for, and the off-season work for our young players. So 4 really key areas of change that will come in from September, and we'll talk about those in much more detail in a second. Which leads us on to our first element, and you might have some questions, but what we found through all these sessions is when you talk about how this works for you, those questions will come out, and we'll take those in terms of feedback. We're recording all the feedback as well, and the discussions you have with each other will raise those questions for you. And that's then an opportunity to feed those back in, and we can address those in front of the whole group, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to Darren, who's going to talk through the new rules of play and Kids First as our first section, and then you will all get a chance to talk about it as well. So over to you. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, everyone. How are we all feeling? Not bad. Any other feelings? Okay, I'm going to talk about Kids First and new rules of play. I'm going to share with you a few slides. I'm going to share with you a few thoughts of my own on the new rules of play. But the important bit is going to be getting your thoughts and your ideas, challenges you face, support you'll need from us moving forward as you look to implement this. Okay? So, I'm going to look at the new rules of play. So, I want to look at what do the new rules of play do. So, new rules of play provide building blocks towards the 15-a-side game. They'll equip players and coaches with the skills that they need. There'll be progression and challenge for players season by season. And one thing that they will provide is what we're describing as maximums, and by that we mean how far towards the 15-a-side game players will be able to move in any one year. Old Mutual Wealth coaching courses will be available from June 2016 for ages under 7 to under 13 that coaches will be able to attend. Again here, it's really important to stress about the maximums. So this will help support coaches understand the furthest the players can move and how they will coach that game. Teachers and coaches will be able to make sure that the game that they're playing is player-centred, up to that level as we described by the maximum, and ensure that the game that they're coaching and playing meets the player's development level and their ability. So the 15-a-side game will now start at under 14. I see that you've been handed out the flyers there with the information about the progressions, so thank you for that. Progression will continue from under 14, where we'll look at the building blocks for the line-out. At the moment, this will be confirmed in April, but at the moment we're looking at under 14, the line-out would be uncontested, looking at developing the throw, catching, movement, jumping, those sort of skills. Under 15, again, it would be uncontested with work on and developing the lift. So uncontested, but give coaches a chance to develop players' ability to lift and players' ability to be lifted. There's another thought there as well at the moment that if it was to 15 to be contested, there would be no lifting in there. And that's still to be decided. As I've said, that should be decided April. And then finally, under 16, it would be as it is now with a contested lift. So as I said, now's your chance to take part and get involved. So for those in the room here, what I'd like us to do is, if I could have these two tables look at point number 1. I'll have the group at the back from where Paul is, behind Paul Carroll. If you just give me a wave, Paul. If you can look at point 2, and then if we have these tables here looking at point 3. For those at home who are watching on the live stream, if you want to tweet in any thoughts that you have on the 3 statements, 3 questions that we have there, you tweet in with the hashtag AgeGradeRugby, or if you want to email some thoughts in, email into agegraderugby@rfu.com, and that will be picked up and responded to following this evening's presentation. So we're going to have 5 minutes to have a look at that. So just to recap, this group here, these 2 tables here, you're going to have a look at what does this mean for you in your club or school or college. People at the back, if you can have a look at how will you work with other local clubs, schools and colleges. And the 3 tables here, finally, if you can have a look at what more do you need from us to deliver this. We'll take 5 minutes just to have a look at that. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for that. Some really good levels of conversation there, so that's great to see. Just want to explain how the next part will work regarding feeding back. So obviously these two tables have been looking at question 1. What I'd ask if you can do is if you can have a spokesperson on the table and just come up with what you think is your most valuable comment to make. Phil's got the microphone, and when you make that comment, if we can just speak into the microphone, Tom's going to scribe and take that feedback onto the flip chart, which we can then take away and obviously action at the end of the evening. So group 1, if we look at this table here, what does this mean for you in your club or school or college?
The biggest thing we thought is getting new players into the game. At the moment, I'm helping out at the school I'm governor at, coaching a year 16 for a festival called Just Tag. And if those kids like what the experience they have and then want to go to a club next year, and all they've had is experience of tag for 6 weeks, then they haven't got the experience of the building blocks to lead up to contacts, which they'll have to go into being a year 7 kid. Whereas with these new age grade rugby rules, if those building blocks are across the board, clubs, schools, so from a young age, they're progressing like those in clubs, then that need of having to maybe keep them to the side to teach them the basics before they can join the majority, that won't be necessary because they'll be able to go in there. And that also battles against the idea of, have we got enough coaches to actually do that? Are we going to have to turn this kid away? I believe with these new building blocks, there's less need of doing that. So kids want to play rugby, they can. I think that's the main point we came up with.
Thank you very much there. Really positive comment, so thank you for that. If I can ask the main point from the second table there on question 1.
Hello. I think we're doing the same point. The key thing for us was the consistency with schools. I mean, we've experienced some schools where two different schools have adopted different progression. Forcing schools to adopt the same progression as clubs would reduce that inconsistency. And just a question really, are there any ways that you can encourage schools to adopt this, or are there any sort of penalties that they lose affiliation if they don't adopt these progressions?
Thanks, Darren. When we're talking to schools, it's more about a philosophical change we're trying to make them do in terms of their rugby provision. This is a huge part of that. And as you said, I think this is one of the first times where schools and clubs will be playing to the same rules, which will help. And that progression that was mentioned on the front table, it's a massive help for schools to be able to make that in their place, to make that transition to clubs. In terms of the regulations, Regulation 15, but what we're looking at schools to do is that philosophical change about what their rugby programme offers. It's more of a carrot than a stick, but this is what young people tell us they want from the game. There's no reason why a school or a club would want to go against that. And if they do, we'll ask them the motivations behind that. So we want schools to adopt this. Schools will adopt this, and we're working with a number of different schools to be able to make this as easy a transition as they can do, which was highlighted in that video before.
What's the RFU doing to ensure that the expertise in the schools to help coach? I'd like to ask what the RFU is doing to ensure that the expertise is in the schools for the coaches to coach effectively. And that links into today's debate, really, about tackling in schools. I'll argue still allow it as long as the expertise is there for the coaches to coach safely and have the knowledge to carry it out effectively.
At the moment, there are a number of different award courses, so your Level 1, Level 2, Level 3 courses. There's also a number of continuing professional development courses which bridge the gap from Level 1 to Level 2, Level 2 to Level 3, and also the introduction up to Level 1. We would expect and we would want as many coaches qualified. So today, as you mentioned it today, we would agree that we would like to have every single coach or teacher or anybody involved in the game to be qualified to be able to deliver. That's what we'd like to happen.
I just add to that, Roger, where's Roger Wilkes? Roger is on the executive of the England Schools Union. And Tom has just mentioned, referenced it, England Schools Union and a number of our partner bodies, so the Headmasters' Headmistresses Conference, the Independent Association of Prep Schools, ISA, all these bodies are talking to their member schools about making this change. Roger, do you want to add anything in terms of that? Because there's a really clear message to schools, isn't there, from those bodies?
I think one of the problems with any message that you send out is making sure that it gets to the right people and that those people then respond to it. And for me, the biggest issue with all of this, which we actually discussed at England Schools National Committee last Sunday, is how a group of people who at one stage thought that their aim in life was to produce the England under-16 team have now got to see themselves as facilitators of the change and development in the game. And somehow we've got to make sure that the people who are doing the actual coaching know what's going on. And I'm not sure that we can always depend on the heads or even the directors of rugby sometimes to make sure that that happens. And that for me is the biggest issue we've got with all of this scheme, which I think is fantastic.
But it would be fair to say, Roger, that the contacts for that information now is at head teacher level, isn't it?
Yes.
It used to be at PE teacher level. Now it's absolutely at head teacher level. That's where the conversations are taking place. And as many of you will know, the moves this season in terms of prep school rugby and the steps they've made to introduce new rules of play right up to and including under 11, that has been driven by the prep schools organisation, who have been massively proactive in making sure that this is the game, as Tom says, that everyone plays. That carries on again next season with everyone playing the same game. So and we're talking about head teachers who want to be providing a safe and developmental game for their young players. Thanks, Roger.
Okay.
So we've got a question from Twitter here, just asking from Sharpie. Thanks for your question, Sharpie. And we've had a couple more as well, which we'll make sure we respond to. Is our key problem has been player recruitment. How do you see the new rules attracting new players, and how will you help?
If you look at, as Mark's alluded to, the way that the new rules have been put in place is based on feedback from players taking back around their quality of experience. I'm sure as well, if you look at the natural progressions that now take place, should give parents confidence. We work slowly through those progressions towards the contact element of the game, giving children the chance to move and progress, when they're ready to do so. So the changes are development driven, based on the child's stage of development. And I'm sure that should give people confidence to, bring their children down to our rugby clubs. So thank you to these tables for positive comments there, and thank you to Mark and Tom for answering those questions. If we go to question 2, if we're going to have a spokesman from the back, we ask you to look at there, how will you work with other local clubs, schools and colleges?
We've talked about working with the school sports partnership. Where I am, we're already going into schools and providing support. I think there is better coaching in clubs than there is in some of the schools that we work with. I think having those links into the schools is fundamental. So, as I say, we're looking at the school sports partnership, how we link in with them, and managing how schools approach the whole game.
Thank you. Anything from the group just to your right there, Phil? Any further comments?
Hi. I'd just like to say I think this is outstanding. It's probably the best thing that ever happened to the game. What we talked about is there just needs to be more communication between clubs and schools regarding how much the children are playing, what they are playing, and the amount of contact that they're doing. So if we can just open up lines of communication to everybody, and I think that's basically the key, just to make sure that the kids are safe all the time and enjoying the rugby.
Yeah, good comment. So, you know, that communication between clubs and schools about what's happening with their players, all of this that we're looking at, putting the players first, understanding what's best for them. Yeah, really good point. So thank you for that. Finally, then, if we just look at point 3, which is, looking for what support you're going to need from us, spokesman for the table just there, Dan, on your table.
It's great when everyone points at someone, isn't it? Who'll do it?
On yours, just under a table. One thing that we sort of came out with is that you've got the All Schools programme. You've now sort of answered a little bit of a question by saying that more information is being passed down to headmasters and mistresses and passed through down. That's the biggest thing for us, is that we're glad to see that schools are going to be following a similar sort of pathway to the club. There's nothing more annoying than going in with a child who's keen, played tag, comes back out, comes to club, and we're doing contact and they're a bit cautious of it. So from us looking forward, is just making sure that feed into the schools is consistent. I know we've got All Schools programme and so on, but that's the biggest thing, is making sure that there's the information for the schools, because this could help us a lot as long as you guys are there to support the schools.
Very good. So yeah, making sure that message consistent into school. So thank you for that. Next group at the back there.
The observations that we made were that obviously with the new rules of play, there's 10 lots of variations going through from under 7 all the way up through to under 16s. And although the pamphlet's here and it simplifies the information that's applicable to each age group, I was just wondering, we sort of gave the example of you could use an app to look at the World Rugby, the laws of the game, quite simple, you can look it up, straight away you've got the information. Is there any plans to put this information simplified so that everybody can access it and everybody knows what age group should be doing what?
Yeah, we are looking at moving forward with online access for a lot of our coaching, refereeing courses, trying to look at that as we move forward. I agree, it's important to make this easily accessible for people so that the information's there readily. When they're asked a question as a coach or referee, they can access that information, feed that back into parents, allay any concerns that they might have. So yeah, I'd agree it's something that that's needed, and we are looking at that at the moment. Finally, this table here.
Hi there. So we looked at this from the point of view of club coaches really more than anything else, and I think our biggest concern was on coach development. First of all, there's very little, there's like specific tag courses, but there's very little specific coaching courses for each age range or group of age ranges. We were saying, you could group, for example, under 10 and under 11 coach training together there, and maybe even referee training at the same time on it. But it was more about the fact that, well, frankly, there's not enough courses running, development courses for coaches, entry-level courses, rugby readies. When they are run, they tend to be in quite specific places. They're not local enough for most people to get to, given that they're 2 or 3 hours. And please don't run them on Sundays in the winter, because that's when we train, when we need it. So more courses, preferably in the off-season, and a mixture of weekends and weekdays, please.
As if by magic, Darren, you've got an answer, haven't you?
I have, yes. So,
are you a plant? That was fantastic.
I touched on it earlier on. So the Old Mutual Wealth Kids First coaching courses that will be available from June 16. They're age specific. So the idea with those is that, let's take under 7s for example. You would look at a cluster through your rugby development officer. Look at a cluster of rugby clubs and schools. People who are working in that under 7 age group. Through your development officer, you'd be looking to arrange when you want the course to take place at your club or at which school, and then it will be specific for those coaches on how they work through the progressions and development for their age group. So it's going to be very much targeted at those. And then the following year, when you move to under 8, you look to say the under 8s module and 9, so it would progress the coaches' referees' knowledge as we're looking to move the players along that pathway. Okay, well, thank you for that comment. Yeah, and I know Tom's made a note of that. Thank you very much for your input into those 3 questions and sharing those feedback with us. I'm just going to hand back now just to Mark, just to share with you around Old Mutual Wealth Kids First. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Darren. So just to outline what Kids First is, and some of you will have seen we launched Kids First formally back in January after a couple of years of pilot work, and we've probably got some of those pilot clubs and the schools we work with in the room today, trying to create a game which does everything we talked about, that makes sure the player's at the centre of what we do. And we've actually been through a bit of a journey on this, in that the changes to the game on the pitch and rollout of new rules of play have been taking place over the last 4 years. And that was about making sure that the experience, as Darren said, the experience of playing the game on the pitch was the right sort of experience at the right age. We then wrapped around that the training programme, and that last question is really important in making sure that what we give our teachers and coaches and organisers and referees is the right sort of skill set to help those players with that game. And Kids First is about everything else to do with it. So in a school or a club, ensuring that the environment, the safety, the philosophy, the organisation of that school or club supports everything that is about putting the child at the centre of what we do. So what we're asking all our schools and clubs that play the game at under 13 and below, every single one of them, it's probably 6,000 plus throughout England, we'd like you all to sign up to become a Kids First school or club. Okay, and this is about your whole club committing to that as well. And the pledge are 5 different things that talk about what we should create in relation to delivering a Kids First opportunity. So we should put children at the heart of everything we do. Every decision we make is about the kids in our club. We should make sure that it is about fun, and what happens on the pitch is exactly that, and gives an opportunity and realism for what our children want to get out of the game. We should train and regularly train all our coaches who work with this age group. And as a club or school, we should commit to doing that. And then the last 2 about making sure that it's not just about the rugby, it's about everything else that we provide in terms of our sport, providing an experience that develops the experience and social skills, all those sorts of things in those young people. And finally, it's about our values. So as a club or school, you will champion those core values, and everyone in your club will do the same. And we want you to commit to doing that, so that you can guarantee what you provide for the kids in your club, which most of you do already, is exactly aligned to that pledge. And we want you to put that pledge on the wall and on your website, and tell people to challenge you, to say, if you don't see us doing that, which might be your parents in your club, tell us, challenge us, because that's the sort of club and the sort of sport that we want to be. Okay? And Old Mutual Wealth have come and helped us put a whole load of resource behind this as well. So an opportunity there, which relates to the coaching courses, the resource that will be available. So anyone who signs up will get the logo, will get the email footers, will get the posters, everything that they need to be able to shout about. When someone walks through the door of that club or that school, they can see, this is how we do rugby. Okay? So an email was sent in January to head teachers and to club youth chairs. Also was sent to main club chairs as well, because this is about the whole club. If you haven't seen that, then email us on that agegraderugby@rfu.com email address, and if you want to sign up, let us know. Okay, and we will make sure that gets sent back again. But this is about the entire club committing to being the type of place where kids want to go and do their sport and spend time on their Saturday or Sunday or in their games afternoon. Okay, so real opportunity for all of us to shout about, this is a sport that puts kids at the centre of what we do. Okay, so real opportunity for our young people. Okay, it's time to hand over to Tom, who's going to talk about the competition menu.
Okay, so the national competition menu. Some changes, some significant changes on the impact of the young people that are playing the game within our schools, clubs and colleges. It's talking about the right competition at the right time. Now remember, this is on feedback from the young people that are playing the game. So we've asked them, what do you enjoy about the game? When do you enjoy it? What environment do you want to play in? So this is the feedback from what young people are telling us. And it's really important that the menu, which we're going to go through in a second, the menu is applied by those competition organisers within schools and within clubs to abide by the menu that we're going to show you in a second. And it's about the format of tournaments, it's about the format of festivals, and the way in which we can introduce young people to a fantastic experience in a competitive environment, but at a time that's right for them, taking into consideration not only their technical and tactical understanding, but also their maturation in terms of their physicality and also emotionally. So there's a couple of areas I just want to highlight in here specifically. So it's nationally defined. So from, let's get my geography right, from Durham down to Kent, from Cumbria down to Cornwall. It's the same opportunity regardless of whether you're playing in a club, within a school or within a college. No formal league rugby until under 15. And I know in some areas it's slightly different. And this is, and I'll say it again, this is a menu of opportunities. So if we can sort of look at it in a context, if you go to a restaurant and you look at the menu, you don't take everything that's on that menu. You take what's right for you, and this is exactly the same as that. So if you're not doing league rugby at under 15, it's not a problem at all. Because I was up in the northeast, and they were saying, we don't do league rugby under 15. That's fine. You have to do what's right for your area, for your competition organisers, but ultimately for the young people that are playing the game. And no tournaments or competitions sort of find the overall winner. As Mark said before, sometimes when you get that cup at the end of the day and you see the shiny medals on the table, it can affect at times not only the behaviour of the players on the pitch, it can also affect the coach behaviour and can also affect the behaviour of the people watching the game on the sidelines. So for those at home and for those that maybe can't see, I'm just going to talk through the left-hand side of this slide. So starting at the top, competition format, you have friendly fixture, triangular, festival, a waterfall tournament, a knockout tournament, and a league underneath that. And across the top is the age group that applies to that particular format of the competition. Like I said before, you don't have to consume it all. It's an opportunity for your local tournament organisers or somebody whoever is working in the school developing those tournaments to pick what's right for the different levels of ability or the age of the players that you're playing with. So it's similar to the new rules of play. You don't have to play to the maximum. You can play down depending on the young people that you're working with. I think we all understand the friendly fixture, sort of the triangular fixture, the festival, the waterfall tournament. Waterfall tournament, the philosophy behind that is everybody plays the same number of games, have the same opportunity to play games across the tournament. So it's taken out the feeling that we play 3 games, early bath, off we go home. And we see our friends sometimes playing on in quarterfinals, semi-finals, and then the final. What we're trying to do is make sure that all the players have the understanding that they have the same opportunity on the pitch, and that's one of the things that they've said that's really important to us. They have said to us, we want to be playing with our friends on the pitch, having fun, and be given the same amount of time. So as you can see, as I said before, under 15 you start to introduce the league format. So under 15, as you move in towards the sort of the secondary school year 8, 9 and 10, the competition deliberately changes. Slightly better understanding of the format they're playing in, the knockout nature of a tournament. But before that, it's still about fun. And regardless of whatever tournament they're playing in, let's not forget, and I think it goes into adult rugby. I know myself, I'm still playing 13 rugby. The enjoyment factor is still being on the pitch with your friends and having fun. The competitive outcome, the winning, the losing, is never the most important, and it continues regardless of whatever age you're playing in. That importance is not there. They may ask you the score, but that score's forgotten as soon as they disappear into the clubhouse of the school. So it's the outcome. We never say the outcome isn't important, but it's not the most important thing as you progress through. The most important thing is having fun on the pitch, regardless of whether you're under 7s or, as I said, under 40s. And as you see over here to the right-hand side, it's a similar experience for the women and girls. The only slight difference is because of the age groups that are playing together on the right-hand side. So we're going to do the same as we did before with Darren. We're going to change it slightly so you get the opportunity to ask a different question. So we're going to split the room up into, so how did you do it before? So these 1, 2, 3 tables there, could you answer question 3? Yep. The group at the back, if you go for question 1, I think this works out right, and 1, 2, 3 tables here, could you do question 2? I think that gives everybody the opportunity to ask a different question. So again, but what I want to make sure, and also for the people watching online, feel free to send in your questions. What I want to make sure you do is answer the questions. They're deliberately worded to say, what are you going to do differently? Because this is an opportunity to share good practices as well. So by all means, give us some of the opinion on it, but have a look about what you're going to do differently when you go back to your club, school or college. Okay, we'll give you 5 minutes, and then we'll be back on track. Thank you. And as you said, this is one of our first live streams, so we want to make sure the people at home have the opportunity for their feedback. And Chris is just going to ask some questions. If we don't get the opportunity to answer all the questions at home, then we will make sure they're all logged, and we will make sure that they are answered within the next sort of 24 hours for those people watching at home from the comfort of their front room. Chris, a couple of questions.
So thank you to everyone who has contributed on Twitter so far. We've got some great questions from Sharpie, Perth Rugby and Vale of Loon. Thank you very much for your comments. Thanks very much to NLD, RFU as well. We do have a question from Mark, who's asked, can we still award fair play or most attractive rugby trophy at minis levels? And that's from Mark at Red Zines.
I think the answer to that is yes. That's fantastic. That's exactly what we want to try and do. It's about the fair play. I mean, I know a lot of either schools are now awarding sort of core values awards to schools. And that takes away the emphasis around the winning, around the hyper-competitive environment that we have sometimes previously encouraged. So yes. Have you got any more that can be read out or not? I take that as a no. What we'll do now then, we'll get to the feedback from the tables, because like as Mark said before, your feedback is really important to us. And at every single roadshow, we make sure we log that on there, and we take it back and we answer the question. So it is really important. So if you do have burning questions to a certain extent, but what we want is that positive, this is what I'm going to do type of philosophy. So, question 1. Who had question 1? This group here, wasn't it? Yeah? Oh, there was lots of blank faces. Okay, question 1. From the back. Thanks, Phil. So what does this mean for your club, your college or school? Spokesman. Excellent.
Well, speaking for the whole of the table, we're primarily focused on clubs. And so the biggest challenge, really, everyone in this room is largely bought in, I think. But there's a realisation that in our clubs there are a lot of people who aren't here tonight, who aren't bought into it, and will give us a lot of challenges in terms of getting their buy-in on the pitch, on the touchline. Hopefully what you've said from the old mutual Kids First thing will provide some of those resources we'll need to be able to break these barriers down. We talked around what may or may not be forthcoming from the CB in terms of supporting clubs to help break those barriers down by getting a consistent message across throughout the clubs in the area, so we're all off the same hymn sheet, really. That's it.
Okay, thank you for that. Any more questions from the back of the room on question 1? What are you going to do differently? I think the answer to the question will be we're going to go back and look at old Mutual Wealth, Kids First, as a way in which we can integrate age grade rugby within the club and like you said, change their hearts and minds. And on that, you are the disciples to go out there and sell the message for us. There's only a certain amount that we can do. So your attendance here is so important across the 17 events that we're doing. So thanks for that feedback. Any more on question 1?
I think you've just touched on what I was going to talk about. At our rugby club, we have an all-inclusive policy where every child, regardless of ability or experience, plays the exact same amount of time. My question was going to be, how do you approach the parents and educate them on, we have a child might turn up once a month, you're playing the same as everybody else because that's your opportunity. How do you educate the parents from the RFU standpoint of view, and how would you like us to educate the parents?
I just very same.
Not the kids. The kids.
I understand that. The parental question comes up quite a lot on the roadshows, and it's probably one of the biggest challenges we've got. There's a couple of areas that we did a coaching meeting down at my own club, and we in September we'll have a session for parents. The information leaflets that you've got there are a really good resource for them to have. The Old Mutual Wealth Kids First programme, there is. If you sign up to that, you'll get information about how to talk to parents and information to be able to give to them. We can only do as much as we can do. You are the disciples for age grade rugby, Old Mutual Wealth, Kids First as well, to help us to go out and sell the game. Any more on question 1, or should we go question 2? Okay, we've got one more at the back.
Considering news today, considering the news today about possible implications of schools and what they're allowed to do in contact, is this compulsory going all the way through and from all the way to professional clubs? Will professional clubs have to comply as well to this, to the maximum allowed? I know you should say you could pick and choose whether you played the full amount, but will it be applied as a maximum?
Yes, it's across the game. And I think we're working as closely as we have done before in terms of the professional game. I'm going to invite Mark into this particular question.
Yeah, we've had some really positive discussions with Premiership Rugby and some of the clubs specifically as well. And not only those providers, other national providers of competitive programmes as well. And they absolutely want to play within regulation. Because they understand across the board all of those organisations, whether it be a Premiership club, a Championship club, a school sports partnership, they understand that those regulations are based on what's right for kids at certain ages. So they absolutely want to do that. This won't all, as I said earlier, this won't all happen overnight, but there is a real will to make sure that we have one game from everyone involved in the game. That's something that's come through really loudly for us, which is huge for all of us in this room and everyone out there as well, and particularly the players as well. So it's a really important point that we make sure everyone is part of this, and there is a will to do that, and the discussions we're having are massively positive on that front.
Thanks, Mark. And we'll go to question 2, spokes 2.
You'll get there in the end.
Have we got a spokesperson there?
Yeah, we were talking about how we can help other clubs and schools and colleges in the area. And I think the key point is to make the schools aware that your local rugby clubs are there to help. We're not just there to play rugby and coach rugby ourselves, we're also there to supply a resource to themselves to help them develop the game within the schools, to give them the skills they need to develop the players.
Great. And I think part of the Age Grade Rugby Roadshow is making schools and clubs aware that conversation, if it hasn't already happened, now's a perfect opportunity for that to start to happen. Schools have been written to and informed about the changes, and have been asked to buy into the Age Grade Rugby philosophy. And this is a great opportunity over the next probably couple of months before the end of the season, but also over the summer. So come September, that conversation between the school, the college, and or the club has happened before September. And we haven't really had an opportunity like this before for those conversations to happen. And hopefully, one of the points that was addressed before in terms of the number of times those players are playing, that school-club conversation is so important. So, fantastic. Thank you for that point. Any more for question 2? Thanks, Phil. And we'll go to question 3.
Just ask a question on question 2.
Hang on, Steve.
Just obviously with streamlining the competition format, is that working down to representation level, so on the academies working on their competition level as well? Because obviously we're looking at a player-centred approach where our talented players are pulled in several directions, playing for schools, playing for clubs, playing for county, playing for academy. So has that obviously been streamlined alongside?
Yes, and we're going to go into that in a second, in a lot more detail, if you can hold out for that one. Okay, so if you've got anything specifically from question 3, opportunity to say what else do we need, and also the groups, if you do have the points, what else do you need us to do as the union to help you go out and sell the message?
Yeah, the biggest thing on our table was, in theory, it's absolutely brilliant in terms of competition and not having winners and losers. And in theory, it's a really beautiful thing. But in reality, there are some coaches, some clubs that don't really follow those guidelines. And from the RFU, we would like a greater presence, not just in the festivals and the tournaments, but on match days between club versus club. So you can put yourselves about and you can see who these clubs are and what these coaches are, so you can help them in terms of it's not about winning, it is about the player, because that doesn't always seem to be put across, and the kids are losing out in the day due to the attitudes and practices of some coaches.
Yes, I probably agree with you to a certain extent. We want those schools and clubs with that particular philosophy to start to become the minority. And the majority of clubs and the majority of schools will start to follow this philosophy, understand that they have that player at the very centre of everything that they do, and we hope that those clubs and schools will start to become the minority, because that is the driver behind age grade rugby, to address some of the issues that you've highlighted in that point there. Yes, Chris, we've got one more from the...
Yeah, Tom, it just really follows on from that, and we might record it, or if not, we'll answer it later. But just a question from Jason Ford, who's saying, in delaying competition, stroke winners, stroke losers, aren't we in danger of producing players who, when older, don't have a desire to win?
I think if you look at the research that we've done and the feedback from the young players that we've got, this is driven by them. This is what they want out of the game. Sometimes the competition format is driven by the adult standing at the front, the coach or the teacher, and it's not necessarily what that young person wants. And I will challenge that idea that if there is no cup at the end of the game, that the players try any less, because they don't. The winning experience, we don't want to take the winning experience out of it, but we don't want that to be the primary driver of why young people are playing the sport. And we'll go back to it, player-centred, development-driven, and that is supported by the competition structure, not led by it. Has anybody got any more questions on that particular? We'll take last question because we are now.
I'm involved in women's and girls rugby, and we've got the issue is I've got players from 4 different counties that play with me, and that becomes really difficult. I know we're sat on a board of a couple, so that makes it a bit more difficult for us. But we've tried to speak to those schools from different counties and try to get them engaged and more aware of what we're trying to achieve. What, from my point of view, would be really nice is if there's a continuous feed into the school. So it's not a case that you roll this out, give them the brochures, give them the direction and say, crack on, happy days, and you guys walk away. It'd be nice to know that there is a continuous 12, 18, 24-month plan that will actually support us, because I think a lot of us around this table, we're proactive anyway, and those watching at home, again, are quite proactive. So it'd be a case of asking you guys to just be as keen as we are and keep plugging away at them and not to sort of walk away to a certain extent. Is that going to happen? Is that something that's going to be in place?
Yes, and as Mark has said, this is a start of a process. We don't expect things to change overnight come September 2016. We'd like that to happen. But it's the very start of a long process in terms of changing the game that our young people are experiencing. So I can only say yes to that. There will be a continuation of age grade rugby, and it's not a start and stop. It doesn't finish in September 2016 when the next thing comes along. It'll be a continuous process. Do you want to add anything else to that, Mark?
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say, and we've got Matt, I don't know, Matt, if you want to say anything being in the room about your support locally for our club, schools and colleges.
Yes, Mark, I'd love to, thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, obviously as development officers and community rugby coaches, we spend a lot of time in schools and in colleges and in clubs, and it's going to be something that's driving our agenda through all of our programmes, so through the All Schools programme, through our Broadening Reach into Schools programme. This message will be delivered time and time again. We're working with a lot of the school games organisers who deliver the primary tag competitions that you see, and really transitioning across to the MegaFest approach to that. And as we've said, it does take time, but those relationships are there, and we will keep plugging away and we'll keep working on it, because it's kind of key to where we're trying to get to with the game, really. So yeah, good point, Nick. Thanks for that, and we will be working over quite a long period of time with this, I think. Yeah.
And I just add that the focus on the girls' game, particularly, you will all know, is absolutely massive. Now we have some real specific ambitions about growing the girls' game. 16,000 new players, but in a 4-year cycle, and we're halfway through it. Absolutely part of what we want to do. And to have 60% of the all schools are running girls' programs. Schools that never did rugby before is a huge contributor to that. So absolutely, this work is all about the whole of the age grade game, male and female.
One more question or point from the front.
Everything, really, all in one. My concern, I like the principle. I think it's brilliant. I think it's going to work. It's going to bring more people into the game. That's a definite. I think we're all agreed at that. With the competition side of it, with like what the teacher was saying over there, is RFU England going to be doing any sort of like medals or anything. So like when we have the competitions, not competitions for the ones under, was it 15, under 14s and below, that we can give to the kids at the end of a competition, so that at least then they can walk away and feel that they've won something, whereas at the moment there is nothing unless the individual clubs pay for anything themselves. I think that it needs something. It needs some recognition at the end of them games. I think everybody would be in agreement. They want to win. They want to play the game, and you have got key players who want to play that level up. So I think to not be able to give them anything is a bit poor. But if we could at least give them something that was from the RFU or whatever, there you go. You was at this competition day. Here you go, that's for participating, and at least they feel they've had a competition and they've gone away with something. It doesn't have to be a lot, I don't think.
Those sort of questions, it's difficult to answer from a national perspective. That very much comes down to local decision making within the constituent body or whoever is organising that tournament. What I would suggest is a certificate to put on the fridge is as good as anything for every young child to go home with and stick it on the fridge and say, look what I did. What we don't want to get to is the 7 or the 10 or the 15 that get awarded the certificates and everybody else goes home empty-handed. It's quite difficult to answer that question from a national perspective, but I agree with you in terms of having something to go away with. A certificate is something that our players would probably want to go home with, but for everybody, not just the select few that have taken part. Okay. Right, I'm going to hand over to Mark. It's relatively quick fire.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, so we're going to talk about the calendar now, and this is the point that was made over here around how we're trying to ensure that we have a nice balanced and structured playing season for our young players. And I'll be honest, this is probably becoming the most challenging part of all the work we're doing around changing the structure because of what's happened before. And this is actually this was approved. This statement here was actually approved by the RFU Council back in April 2015 to try and ensure that we had a calendar for the season that was about all of the players, not just about those players who might be the ones who are going forward into a representative rugby programme or those that have played for a long time. It was about making sure that a calendar for all the players was there and available for us. So what we're going to have is a calendar which defines weeks in the season when the clubs will organise their competitions, or the schools and colleges will organise their competitions, and representative rugby will be organised as well. And that calendar and those windows will be, again, the same, to take Tom's geography from Durham to, where was it, Kent, and Cornwall to Cumbria. That will be the same calendar. So if you're on the boundary of 4 different counties, they will all be playing to the same windows. So you won't find players being asked to do one thing and one set of players being asked to do one thing and one set of players being asked to do another. So national consistency is the key to this. And this means that there needs to be some fairly significant change from some of our competition organisers. And we had 4 sessions across the country with all those people in our counties who organise the different competitions, the representative rugby programmes, to get feedback from them about the proposals we had, and we've changed some of those windows, etc., as a result of that work. But what it means is that there's balance throughout the season for our competition programmes. Okay, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. This calendar will be implemented next season, so September 2016-17 season, under 16 and below in the boys' game, and right across the 3 dual age bands in the girls' game, 13, 15, 18. In 2017-18, so the season after, the under 17 and under 18 boys programme will come in as well. And the simple reason for that is I talked about challenge, there's massive challenge around what we currently try and squeeze into the under 17, under 18 boys season. And that's why that's going to take longer to do. But there's a real will by those competition organisers to make sure we get the right programme, again, based on our players' wants, needs, motivations. So the coming season, this will change, and the season after, the 17s and 18s will come in as well. And this is what the calendar is about. I've talked about balance already. So all the players have a real balance and consistency to what their season looks like. It means that the players can play all season round just because we are arranging our local schools competitions in a certain window of the season. Doesn't mean club rugby stops and vice versa, but it means our club coaches know that if they have players who play in schools, that they will have their most intense competitions in a certain window of the season, and then you can pick your players appropriately as a result of knowing that, and vice versa as well. Yeah. So there will be a window when you know that some of your players, as that club coach, won't be available. Likewise, a school teacher knows there will be some weeks when those players who are playing in a club might not be available as well. Now, them not being available is about the conversation that we've already talked about today. Okay? So it gives us an opportunity to have a balanced season right at the beginning of the season where we can talk to players, parents, teachers, coaches about what is best for our young players. What's the most player-centred season for that individual? Okay? And at the moment, our structured season has all sorts of things dotted all around it, so there isn't a rhyme and reason to it, and we do get things on during the same week. So earlier on this season, as an example, I think it was the first week of October, wasn't in any of the counties around here, but there was a player under 15 who could have played 11 times in 1 week. Okay, because of all the things that were not in terms of a balance of a season actually put in. So that was training and playing matches, could have played 11 times. This is going to make sure that we don't have that situation. Okay, so we're ensuring that the clashes have gone, the conflict, we're ensuring that those windows are helping players to play and be retained, players of all levels, because of course while your star players might be off playing representative rugby, it doesn't mean the others aren't going to do anything. Okay, and the current structured season doesn't necessarily help that to happen. So we're making sure that's included as well. Before I hand over to Phil, who's going to talk specifically about how representative rugby is built into this as well, the season itself is going to be online. That will go up online this week, and you can see where those windows are. Okay, and what it also means, if you're a club who organises, as an example, you might organise a big under-14 tournament at your club during a certain week of the year every year. You can now see where you can cite that, knowing that that's when every club will be ready to play in that window, because you can cite it in the club competition window rather than in the school competition window. So it helps you to do that as well. So as well as helping our county organisers and other organisers and our Premiership Rugby organisers who are going to look at these windows as well, it helps clubs themselves and schools themselves to run their tournaments and competitions in those windows as well. So again, based on helping the player to get that balanced and consistent season. Okay. So representative rugby is an important part of this as well, and the role that plays. So Phil's just going to talk through that, and then we'll go back into our groups and take some of the questions.
Great stuff, thanks Mark. Guys, Rep Rugby is pretty much kind of the last piece of the jigsaw, so we're just going to talk around Rep Rugby and or selection programs as we call them. And the view of this was to provide just greater consistency across the national picture. Again, go Durham to Cornwall, very, very different depending on where you live, and again, to get a consistent picture across wherever you live, whether it's boundaries or not. So the major changes, I guess, the representative pathway, as you can see, the divisional rep programme has been replaced by the regional level programme, so that's now moved in line with the academy structure. No rep rugby before under 15 level, so the main kind of council approval came on that rep rugby should be about the right level of programme for the right age of the player, the right maturity of the player. And that was a really, really key finding again that came out for some research and also the feedback that we got from the individuals involved. Talent Symposium. So the Talent Symposium is the basis of Rep Rugby in terms of kind of the knowledge base and where the information is formed. Involves experts from the world of rugby, other sports, and again, international experts in child development. So the theory behind this, and as you can see there, 79% at the Talent Symposium that the RFU ran agreed that talent ID, selection, and probably more importantly or accurately, deselection should be delayed until the player is in a position, mentally to be able to deal with that as a process. And as an ongoing thing throughout Rep Rugby, it's as much about the player that's not in that programme at that point in time as it is about the player within it. Rugby is a late specialisation sport. By that, you're not producing international players when they're very, very young. Look at someone like Courtney Laws, for example, probably didn't start playing rugby till he was 15, 16. Is now a full international. So it is something that people can come to later in life. They don't need to specialise in it early. In terms of the menu, as Tom talked about earlier, it is a menu. It's something that you don't have to deliver everything. So, for example, there won't necessarily be county rugby in every constituent body up and down the country. There won't have to be sub-county or district programme at every single level either. It's certainly not about deprioritising Rep Rugby. It's about aligning it to be, to the core of the game, to ensure that, again, that people can move in and out of the programme, that come that first opportunity under 15 in a trial, you're not just, thanks very much, we're never going to see you again. Actually, you weren't successful in this opportunity, but you will get more opportunities as you move through, and you'll come in and you'll come out of the system. So again, we will split, so we'll kind of go Tom confused it now, didn't he? Guys at the back, what number are you going to be on? Throw it at me. What number haven't you done? So you're now number 1, 2s, 3s. There we go. Great stuff. We're going to go to Chris in a second for a question from Twitter. Just one thing I didn't mention in those previous slides, that this does align to the calendar. So what Mark talked about in terms of the calendar for the season, this is integrated fully into that, so they're not standalone. So again, there shouldn't be clashes and issues with prioritisation and things like that. It should be a fairly smooth running process of when things fit within those windows. So Chris, we'll go over to you for a Twitter question.
Yeah, we've had a couple of questions. One from Rugby for You, just asking about the girls' competition and just saying why isn't there any DPP for girls under 13s, and a second one from Mark TW asking why isn't there a mention of DPP for girls rugby, and why can't we have girls CB under 13 teams? The girls like it.
Okay, so in terms of the DPP question, why is there no? It's a really good question. The DPP currently, or Developing Player Programme, is currently being reviewed, and that's being reviewed across the summer. So there will be changes coming with that. At the moment, there is no reason why that's not in place, and it is something we will look to discuss within the review moving forward. In terms of the CB teams at under 13s, as we kind of talked about within the slides there, it's about having a representative team at the right age and the right maturity level. Under 13, we'd probably say in terms of a deselection point of view, they're not mature enough to be in a position where actually being told that perhaps they're not going to be involved in that programme is going to go down potentially well. That's going to be a pretty high risk for a player that's going to be told, at the moment, we don't consider you within this programme good enough to go any further. So actually we retain that and move it forward from under 15s when they're at a better level. Okay, so we'll go to questions in the room. So Matt's going to wander around. Group number 1.
You guys better want this now. Yes, good.
Great, let's move on. Good. Must be a question from Group 1. Come on, feedback from Group 1. What do we say?
Can I just say it's really good? Why has it took so long to 2016 to align the calendar nationally? It's just brilliant. Common sense, isn't it? Well done.
Would agree with that. Yeah.
I work within the girls' game and the boys' game. The girls' game this year and last year has had a national calendar, and it has worked superb because all the clubs know what's happening in every area of the nation, and it means you can organise your fixtures far easier than what you can within the boys' game. So for me, it needs to happen more often in the boys' game.
Brilliant. That's really good feedback to hear. Thank you.
Can I just make a quick point on that? There's a really important principle around this work, and it's a really simple one. We must not make all the mistakes in the girls' game that have got us to this point in the boys' game that we're having to change everything. And this is about guarding against that. We're safeguarding the future of the girls' game, doing this stuff now with the girls' game, so we don't go off down the route of representative rugby too early, masses of competitions before we think about the player, all those sorts of things. So it's a really important point. We need to keep the girls' game on the journey it's on. It would be very easy to say, let's make it like the boys' game is. We know that would be a mistake, or 10 years down the line, we'd be sat in this room trying to make all these changes to the girls' game. We must make sure that doesn't happen.
Regarding the under 13 at CB level, we've got Pete Askell in the room here, who works with the NLD under 13s, and I think he could have answered that question quite easily. Yeah. It's about development.
So you understand what we're doing at NLD? I'm the head coach of the 13 girls. Hello. My name's Pete Askell, head coach of NLD under 13 girls. We've had 2 years of exceptional growth in the girls' game at under 13s, purely because we focus on development and festivals. There's no trials. It's an open door policy for girls that are new to the game to come together, learn together, play together, and then enter festivals with other CBs, other clubs from other regions, and just experience the game, as you've been saying, have fun, which again then leaves a perfect pathway into the under 15 game, and it's been a tremendous success. Numbers have shot up, over 40 plus, and you know, some of the girls have gone from 13s development rugby over the past 2 years, and they're now playing divisional. I don't know how many we got, Mark? About 4 or 5 have gone through? 5.
Brilliant.
It shows the pathway works, but what you just mentioned about the under 13 girls, we don't focus on winning, we don't focus on tournaments, it's purely development and festivals, and it's something that I think the boys game could look at, actually, if I'm being honest.
I think you're dead right. Again, great feedback and really positive to hear that's what you're doing. I think the biggest message to take out of that, if we put player development first, again, a player-centred approach means that everything else falls in line after that. It's not striving for an outcome and not having everything in behind that aligned to make that outcome, having a better chance of succeeding in that outcome, whatever that might be. So if that development focus and that player-centredness is at the forefront of everything we're doing, we should get the outcomes we want for every player, and the players should get their own outcomes. Great stuff. So we go to question 2.
So we were looking at how clubs can work together and how clubs and schools can work together, and we started off with the conversation that the calendar and the performance programme could work quite well in principle, but the more we talked about it, the more we thought, well, actually there could be problems, particularly as kids get older. Excuse me. If they're playing for their school on a Saturday and they're playing for the club on a Sunday, and if the school play on the Saturday afternoon, recovery time isn't very long. So having those calendars is a great idea. Working it through between club and school to benefit the player, I think is going to prove quite difficult.
I think, potentially. I wouldn't disagree with that. I think what you've said there, it's the relationship you have between the two. So as a club coach or as a school coach, putting the player first. Ultimately, it's actually, yes, it's an important game on a Saturday. Yes, they're a good player, so they're involved.
Important game.
Sorry?
Define important game.
Well, that is hugely subjective, isn't it? But you could argue every game is important, but it's about saying what is going to be best for that player at that moment in time. That may
You're
be.
right, but then it comes down to the player and the parents and the school and the club putting different pressures on the player. So where does that player choose? You're putting
If
a
it's
lot
about
of
the player
pressure
first,
on a young person.
Should they be putting pressure on them? Should there be an approach from every party involved to say what's best for you? Because if that player is put at the forefront of that, it should be a fairly clear answer.
Agreed,
and whether
but
that's conversation.
Who's coordinating that? If the player is mature enough and confident enough, they can manage their time. If the school if the player perceives that their priority is school, then they don't want to let. The last thing these kids want to do is let people down.
Yeah,
we don't want to
completely,
put them in that position. But to come up with the calendar is a really great concept. But who is going to manage that?
Again, I think that's a responsibility of everybody involved in that process. By being involved in that process, that's probably a responsibility you put your hand up and say, as a school coach, as a club coach, as a parent, I have to have those conversations. I can't not be involved because of how important they are to manage that individual. Because again, they're as high a risk of not moving forward and not enjoying what they're doing and feeling pressure if one of those parties decides actually that's not our responsibility to manage that. The whole game approach has to be everybody involved in those conversations has a priority to be involved in those conversations, because otherwise it falls down. And maybe history would say when people aren't happy and comfortable to have those conversations, that's what's caused maybe a little bit of the mess that we've got into with individuals or groups that we have previously or at the moment. Hopefully that clarity of message says, you're in this role, you have to be involved in that. You can't shirk responsibility.
So the school has to talk to perhaps 5 or 6 clubs, or a year group coach in a club has to talk to 10 schools. It's tricky.
Don't get me wrong. It's not easy.
Phil, Mark. Can I just add to that? Phil's right. What we want to do, and what we've deliberately we've not called the windows priority windows. That has been really deliberate at this point, because what we want to happen is what Phil's talking about. We want people to look at a player and say what is best for that player. But we are also not naive enough to think some of those conversations are going to end up with people at loggerheads. So what we're doing this season and over the next sort of 9 to 12 months is looking at is trialling how can we create priority, but priority in a supportive way of the conversation we've talked about, not in a way that someone says it's our priority and we're not going to talk to you about this player, because we're trying to create a change in the way the game does what it does. So those priority pilots trials are going to hopefully give us a way in which we can regulate, and supportive regulation, as I said earlier, that helps people to prioritise on behalf of the player. But the player's role in that conversation is really important, as Phil says. So it's not something we've ignored, but we've deliberately focused at the moment on competition windows, so what competitions are played when, and then what we want to do is make sure that we have the safety net, if you like, of what is priority. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a valid point. He's spot on there, because there is loggerheads when we talk about players pulling in different directions. But you're true to it. It's about open communication and forward planning. Working in a school, and it is difficult when you've got umpteen clubs and academies and etc. So we try to get out what we would prioritise as priority games. So for clubs and schools, it's going to be cups, isn't it? At that 18s level, certainly those senior players. But beyond that, everything else has to be player centred, as you say, and we try to. You have to manage that. But again, back to those open conversations, and probably back to not going full circle, back to that point at the very start of the session. What, as a lot of people seem to do, have conflicts with other schools. What's the RFU doing with those schools that are against the new proposals? As for working in a school myself, I think they're fantastic. We bought into it because it makes much more smoother run, and we don't have that conversation with parents and players at clubs. Well, we do this at their club, and why are we not doing this at school? It makes it far smoother, far less complicated, and they say player centred for that development.
I think there's probably two things that will happen there in terms of the local delivery team. So Matt, as a rugby development officer, and the community coaches that are involved regularly from an RFU perspective in those environments will have those discussions. I think what actually you'll see is if schools, a certain school in an area isn't buying into that and isn't involved, the pressure from the clubs that are doing this, and from the parents that are doing this, and from the players that are understanding this in other environments, it will drive the school to be in a position where they probably have to. I'm not sure there's a way out of this for anybody, and that's a really good thing. That it will mean that it's best practice, it's putting those players first, because actually I guess the question for a parent would be, why would I want to send my son or daughter to a school that isn't putting that player first, or that individual first, or that person first? And that's going to have to force a change, so they will end up needing to be online with this, because there's a massive risk if they don't ultimately, I would suggest.
Just go back to the question I was going to ask earlier. Just again, back to the central competition, it's fantastic for that forward plan, and we can obviously look ahead and help with that. What happens with those free weekends where there is opportunities to do competitions and X, Y, and Z club all want to run something at the same time? How is the RFU going to help that? Are the competitions going to be RFU approved, RFU centralised, or county centralised? How are we going to avoid that conflict with those?
Yeah. If a club, in regulation, if a club or a school wants to organise a tournament, say, they need to get approval for that. That is a current regulation at the moment, but it isn't necessarily enforced. And that's where our counties play a really important role in that locally, and our county schools unions as well. So them working close together is going to be really important as well. If it's a national competition, so it involves clubs or schools or colleges from different counties, then that approval is to the RFU. So it happens in both respects. And what we want to do is create much more of a buy-in to that approach. At the moment, there will be, I don't know, say a sevens competition. It might take place in March sometime, which no one knows about. We need to try and make sure everyone is more aware by using the approval system. So that's going to be something that we will work on. It's a really important point, because how can we create a balanced conversation about a player if we don't know what their season's going to look like at the beginning of the season? So buying into and applying that regulation is important.
We'll go. Any more questions too? So we'll go.
The joys of being here at every coaches meeting at the club.
Yeah.
There's about 11 emails from all the coaches asking me to ask questions.
Good good engagement. I like it. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I might not in a second.
I was going to say, you could do my email list. A lot of them have been answered, and I'll feed that back to the club. But one that's been sent to me, which is related to what you're asking now. I'll read word for word, if I can. The policy of introducing dates for school competitions means that NLD club competitions are all being pushed to the fringes of the school terms, which is disproportionate number of games being played in early season and on half-term holiday weekends. There's obviously a concern from our coaches and our clubs that under 16s are pushing up. It has to be realised that all the players are at school, and therefore when holidays come, many aren't available. Many of them obviously are going away, and therefore won't be able to take part in club games and club competitions. What's sort of the feedback can I take back to the club for those who are worrying about that?
That was feedback we got from the January sessions I referenced earlier. So we've actually changed that. So in the new windows, the half terms are taken out. There's always a week taken out for half term. And also during the Easter and Christmas holiday as well, there's a week taken out. So actually it leaves us a 29 weeks season, of which 15 of those dates are club-based competitions windows and 14 are school-based competition windows. So that has been addressed in the final version.
Great stuff. Question 3, feedback from the guys there.
It's just a reiteration of, I suppose, of what we've been saying. It's just a reiteration of the same. We've had it twice, number 3, and we just sit around and ask the same questions we've been asked you. So from my point of view, I think you've given the answer 3 times. So.
Excellent. Good stuff. No? Any other questions, guys? Oh, yeah, we'll go one more, last one from social media. Chris?
So sort of on the subject we've been talking about, and it's a question from Peter O'Keefe, who asks, so who's regulating the schools to comply with the proposed calendar? How do we as clubs enforce compliance?
Mark, do you want to?
Yeah, thanks, Phil. I'd refer back to that last point about prioritisation. That's actually, for me, that's a prioritisation question. And as I've said, mentioned earlier about England schools and those 28 county schools unions around the country, they are absolutely committed to making this work. And that's not only, of course, the rugby organisations, that is the school organisations themselves. On the club side, our counties, and this is one of those counties that has a really strong, and we've heard in terms of the girls' game, a really strong presence in terms of age grade rugby and what the county does. Those organisations working together, our counties and the schools unions in the counties, is going to be really important to this. And let's not forget the college game as well. The college game is growing really quickly, and we need to make sure they are also sat at that table helping our clubs, schools and colleges to be able to make things work together. So in terms of that Twitter question, that is absolutely about creating the discussion, but we must also do the priority work that I talked about earlier, because there will be instances where it reaches a point where there needs to be a regulation that takes over from hoping to have a conversation, because we've got to be realistic, haven't we, that we won't always get to that point. Hopefully that answers that question.
I've been asked several times, with the playing out of age group.
Yep.
Are they changing in any shape or form? Because there seems to be conflicting feedback from different coaches at different clubs that I've gone to saying, oh, they're doing this, they're doing that. I can't find any different ones on your website at the moment.
Regulation won't change. Yeah, as is, say, moving forward.
Cool.
Okay. Great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Phil. So I was just going to confirm a little bit about what we talked about earlier, just to wrap up. We've got sort of 10 minutes to go. The timeline for this work is as follows. So we've done some work in 2015-16, work around introduction of new rules of play in prep schools, work around the review of new rules of play and our pilots confirming what the final versions will be for the 16-17 season, etc. those discussions with different areas of the club's game, the college game, the school's game, to make sure we are getting ready for September. What will happen in September, as I said earlier, is age grade rugby implementation will happen under 16, downwards in terms of the calendar. The new rules of play coming in, the menu coming in across the board, our representative rugby changes as well will change. The only bit that won't change is making sure we get the under 17, under 18 calendar sorted this year so that we can then implement it from the 2017-18 season. Okay, so our rollout is the majority of change this coming season, but then with extra change after that. And we will continually review this. That's one of the things, and someone referenced it earlier on, that we've been really good at the RFU at changing things and then leaving them alone. There will be continual review consistently about what is happening to our players and in terms of their participation, their retention in the game, new players coming to the game as a result of making these changes. So our commitment to you is we're going to be much better at making sure we support you to be able to do that retention and recruitment of your players. So our rollout is over 2 years, but actually the majority is happening now, ready for September 2016. We do have a load of other information. Some of you might already have been on the website, englandrugby.com/agegraderugby, and we're updating that all the time with the information that we're getting from the roadshows. So please go there, have a look, and if you think, coming back to our question 3, if you think there's something missing, something else that you could do with to help your players, get in touch with us. There are a number of ways to get in touch with us. So in the middle there, agegraderugby@rfu.com, kidsfirst@rfu.com if you want to sign up to the pledge, etc. There's Kids First page as well, should have mentioned that on the website. So getting more information about everything that we're doing. And also we're on Twitter as well. We've been using the Twitter feed this evening. So there is more information out there for you. And as you mentioned earlier, in some ways we're preaching to the converted. Yeah, if you want other people to see this stuff, let them have these links as well, and they'll be able to share it as well. So please do keep in touch. That's something that's really important to us as well. You've got the local team, you've got the likes of Matt, you've got our county guys as well. But also if there's anything nationally you want to be in touch with us about, get in touch, let us know, and we'll do our best to answer questions and give you information. Because it is our job as a governing body of sport to help you to do what you do for our players. Okay. The final thing is, what have I done? The final thing is a thank you. As I said at the beginning, a number of you have come a long way to be here tonight, and we really appreciate that. Most people at home haven't gone very far at all, but it's really good to have people joining online as well. Our numbers look pretty good as a first attempt, so we're going to do a live streaming again when we're at the Bromsgrove event, which is in a couple of weeks, isn't it? So we've learnt a bit tonight for that. But thanks very much to all of you. Thank you for your input. As I say, please do keep in touch, and a big thank you to the club as well for hosting us tonight. So have a safe journey home. Take your leaflets with you. Those will be landing in the club. If they haven't already, they'll be landing pretty soon as well, so everyone can have those. And you will be getting those on the new courses that you'll all come to in the summer. Okay, thanks very much, everyone. Have a safe journey home. Thank you. And please take